The movie began in April 1938. The voice of death is sharing its experience of coming across a child named Liesel Memminger. While a young Liesel travels on a train with her mother and younger brother, she becomes an unwilling witness to the moment her younger brother dies. This is where death first encounters Liesel. Following Liesel's brother's death, young Liesel is sent away to be adopted by the Hubermanns in Germany. Liesel's mother had to decide to send her remaining child away to be adopted because she is a wanted woman for being a communist. The Hubermanns introduce themselves as Rosa and Hans to Liesel. After settling into her new home, Rosa instructs Liesel to call her mama and Hans papa. In the beginning, Liesel is quiet and barely talks. She feels incredibly lonely living away from her family from a young age. The next day, the young boy from next door knocks early at the Hubermann household. The boy is known as Rudy and asks the Hubermanns to be allowed to walk with Liesel to school. Rosa agrees, and the two young children begin a close friendship. On her first day at school, the teacher asks Liesel to write her name on the chalkboard. Liesel, who doesn't know how to read or write yet, can only write 3 X's on the board. This earns Liesel ridicule from her classmates. They call her Dummkopf for stupid in German. Not one to tolerate embarrassment, Liesel starts beating up one of the boys who teased her, Franz. Liesel's boldness draws Rudy closer to her. On their way home, Liesel cautions Rudy against getting familiar with her because she will leave soon. Rudy just brushes her remark off as mere foolishness. That same evening, when Hans tucks Liesel to bed, he discovers a book she has picked up from her brother's funeral, the Gravedigger's Handbook. She lies when he asks Liesel about it and says it belongs to her dead brother. Hans surmises that Liesel doesn't know how to read yet, so he takes it upon himself to teach her. Meanwhile, during the Kristallnacht, Max Vandenberg is forced to separate from his mother. At the time, being Jewish was unsafe. A friend of the Vandenbergs informs them that they need to escape. However, only one of them is allowed, and Max's mother forces him to go and save himself. Death notes that this moment haunted Max the most in his life. Soon after Liesel arrives in Germany, she is inducted to join the Hitler Youth movement along with Rudy. During one of the induction activities for the movement, a Nazi book burning ceremony, Liesel and Rudy are forced to throw books onto the bonfire. The savage act greatly upsets Liesel, who has developed a high regard for literature as Hans continues to tutor her. It has been a sacred tradition between a father and his daughter that Liesel truly treasured. When the bonfire event ends, and everyone has left, Liesel returns to the fire to grab a book that is yet to be badly burnt. However, Liesel appears to have been caught in the act by a woman in a car that happens to drive away. Not knowing who saw her, Liesel brushes it off and avoids thinking about the consequence of her actions. Back at the Hubermann home, while Liesel and Hans are studying her words, a knock comes on their door in the middle of the night. When Hans opens the door, it is Max Vandenberg on the other side. Max falls to the floor almost immediately as he is led into the house. When Rosa finds Max on the ground, she hurries everyone along and quickly shuts the door. The Hubermanns put Max on the spare bed in Liesel's room to recover. While Max sleeps, Hans takes Liesel aside to explain what is happening. Hans makes Liesel understand that Max will be staying with their family for a while but that no one can know he is there. He makes Liesel promise not to tell a single soul. In the next few days, the Hubermanns and Liesel tend to Max as he recovers from the injuries he has taken in his travels. While sharing a room together, Max and Liesel grow close. The two bond over their shared hatred of Hitler. Max disapproves of the Führer's atrocities against the Jews, and Liesel blames Hitler for separating her from her mother. One day, Rosa, a laundry woman, asks Liesel to help with some of her work. She tasks her adopted daughter to take the laundry to the mayor's house. Once there, Liesel realizes that the woman who saw her take a book from the bonfire was none other than the mayor's wife, Ilse. Instead of chastising Liesel for her unscrupulous actions on the night of the book burning event, Ilse shows her compassion. The mayor's wife shows a fondness for Liesel's love of literature. She even leads Liesel to her personal library, filled with shelves upon shelves of books. Before Liesel leaves, Ilse tells her to come by any time and read as much as her heart desires. The more time Liesel spends with Ilse and her library, the more she learns about the life of the lonely mayor's wife. Liesel asks Ilse about the name signed inside most of the books in the library, Johann. Ilse explains that she once had a son named Johann, and all the books in her library belong to him. Liesel realizes that Ilse feels deeply about the loss of her son and that the library was made to commemorate the young boy. As Max recovers from his travel injuries, he develops bed sores from having to spend all day lying down. He is quickly moved from Liesel's bedroom to the basement to have more room. This move upsets Liesel as she feels like Max is leaving her. But Max assures her that he is not going anywhere. After Max moves to the basement, Liesel spends more time with him. They talk about the books Liesel reads at the mayor's house. Sometimes, Max asks Liesel to describe the outside to him. This develops Liesel's vocabulary and storytelling. Unfortunately for Liesel, the mayor discovers her arrangement with Ilse one day. He disapproves of Ilse and Liesel spending time at the library together, so he ends their agreement. He even dismisses Rosa as their laundry lady. One afternoon, Liesel presents Max with a gift. A newspaper. Max is ecstatic about finding out about the world outside. It has started snowing, and the family plays together in the snow. To be able to involve Max, they all take snow from the outside into the basement, and they bond as a family. Liesel exclaims it is the best Christmas she has ever had, and then it is Max's turn to give her a gift. Max has taken his copy of Mein Kampf but has painted over each page, turning it into a blank book. He tells Liesel to start writing over it and make it her own. The next day, Max falls ill over the extreme cold in the basement, exacerbated by the family's snow fight. Feeling guilty about Max's condition, Liesel watches over him. She resolves to read to Max until he gets better. When Liesel runs out of books to read to Max, she borrows some from the library. She revisits the mayor's house but doesn't use the front door. Instead, she uses an unlocked window to gain access to the library. Once inside, Liesel grabs a book to take home to read to Max. When her plan succeeds, she gains the confidence to keep doing it in the following days. One day, while borrowing another book from the library, Rudy catches Liesel in the act. Rudy begs his friend to tell him what he saw her doing, and finally, Liesel confesses. She means Rudy, she has only been borrowing books and nothing more. Rudy gets quiet and presses his friend to tell him more. Liesel needs clarification about what Rudy is asking her. He finally asks her about Max. He has covertly read her journal and found out about Max. Liesel is shocked and begs Rudy not to tell anybody. As Rudy promises Liesel to keep it a secret, their school bully, Franz, overhears. Franz pressures Rudy to divulge Liesel's secret, but Rudy adamantly refuses. Instead, Rudy throws Liesel's journal into the river to prevent Franz from ever discovering Liesel's secret. Immediately after Franz has left, Rudy jumps into the icy river to rescue the journal. Liesel decides she can genuinely trust Rudy with her family's secret. Before Max fully recovers from being ill again, a local party member comes by the Hubermann household to check the basement. The family scrambles to hide Max to avoid being discovered harboring a fugitive. Thankfully, the government workers inform the Hubermanns their house is being checked as a potential bomb shelter, and the family breathes a sigh of relief. One day at work, Hans witnesses his friend and neighbor being violently taken away by the police after being suspected as a Jew. Hans, out of his goodness, tries to defend his friend and tell the police that the man is a good German. The man begs the police to listen and even tells them his son is in the war, fighting for Germany, but he is taken anyway. Since Hans spoke up and defended the man in question, the soldiers took his name. Upon collecting his name, Hans realizes what a mistake he has made. By speaking up, he has revealed himself as a sympathizer. It is only a matter of time before soldiers knock at his door again, looking for a fugitive. When Hans returns home, he regretfully tells the family what he has done. Max figures out what it means and realizes he must leave at once to protect the Hubermanns and Liesel. Max and Liesel tearfully say goodbye to each other. Max reminds Liesel that she will always find him in her words, with it, he will always live on. Shortly after that, Rudy, too, will be taken away. He has been selected for elite training to become a soldier. On the same day, Hans receives a telegram that he has been enlisted into the army and must join the war immediately. Liesel is devastated that, once again, she is being left behind. It did not take long for Hans to return, however. The family is reunited when he becomes injured on the front. When Liesel and Hans get a chance to catch up, Liesel opens up to her adoptive father about how miserable she feels after Max has left. Hans comforts his daughter and remarks on how much she has grown up. Soon after the heartfelt moment with her father, Liesel begins writing her life story. But before she could even finish, the enemy bombed the city. Practically everyone in the neighborhood dies, including the Hubermanns. Only Liesel was spared because she fell asleep while writing in the basement. Next door, the neighbors pull out a badly injured Rudy from their wrecked home. Liesel rushes to her friend's side, and he starts to tell Liesel that he loves her. Liesel begs him to not die and finally gives him the kiss he has always begged her for. But it's too late, and he has already passed. 2 years later, while Liesel works in a tailor shop, Max triumphantly returns to her. She is overjoyed to find him alive and back in her life. She runs up to her friend, and they embrace in reunion. The movie ends with death, again, continuing his story about Liesel. It is satisfying that Liesel has lived an entire life until the tender age of 90. Death says it has seen many good and bad things over the years, but Liesel is one of the few that ever made it wonder how it would be to live life. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.